Welcome to the 17th lecture of the online lecture series on language, literature, and cultural studies organized by the English Language Teachers Interaction Forum, ELTIF. Now, Ms. Vinija, faculty of the District Center for English at Thrissur, will brief you about the programs of ELTIF.
It's my privilege and pleasure to introduce ELTIF to you. Way back in 2002, a place in the north of Kerala, a group of like-minded teachers formed a small informal platform. It moved forward with smaller activities to promote proficiency in English language among students and teachers. It has grown into an organization with the participation of a large number of service-minded people who are able to organize more than 500 language nurturing programs for the students, teachers, and rural people across the country. That is the beginning and growth of the organization ELTIF. This voluntary organization lives in and works mainly for the villages with a motto of empowering rural India through English language education. ELTIF provides training to the teachers catering to their individual professional development needs. ELTIF also conducts workshops and English enrichment programs for learners with a view to helping them meeting academic needs and aspirations. And it always indulges in social activities such as organizing awareness programs for parents and public, support programs for housewives, Kudumbashree and tribal women, empowerment program for skilled and semi-skilled workers, and even for prison inmates. ELTIF does not rely on learning within four walls or learning based on predetermined modules. Most of the ELTIF programs I attended were unique and exceptional. It is unbelievable that experts, teachers, and college students from various parts of the country voluntarily come forward as volunteers for the events organized by this small organization in the rural villages in Kerala. The people take up those events as their local festivals, and a sort of cultural exchange takes place along with English language teaching and learning. ELTIF has been regularly organizing national conferences every year, international conferences in collaboration with reputed universities and other educational institutions. ELTIF has been publishing a professional quarterly journal of ELTIF promptly and regularly for the last 10 years. As the face-to-face or centralized programs were impossible owing to the unprecedented situations posed by COVID-19 pandemic, ELTIF and its volunteers could not remain idle. Instead, the activities were switched on to online mode. We are driven not by any kind of material gains, but by the genuine passion for our education and thrive for selfless service. I request you to join us in our mission, support us, and be a part of ELTIF, not merely for your individual enrichment, but also for fulfilling the social commitment of serving the needy.
Today's speaker is a very special person. He is Professor Elango, the National Secretary of the English Language Teachers Association of India, which is the oldest and the largest network of English language teachers in our country. A person whom I admire too. I now request Dr. Danya of Macmillan Education and a member of ELTIF to introduce today's speaker. Professor Elango, incidentally, was the supervising teacher of Dr. Danya's PhD program.
I'm extremely happy and proud to introduce Dr. Elango because it's a privilege for any student to introduce his or her own research guide in such an august platform. I'm extremely happy and proud, and I don't think Dr. Elango needs any special introduction among the English language teachers in India and in various other parts of the world. He is a well-known name. And he is, as Dr. Praveen has mentioned, he is the current secretary. He is the secretary of English Language Teachers Association of India, ELTAI. He was a former professor and head of the department of Anna University, Chennai, with about 4 decades of teaching experience. He is committed to indigenizing English language teaching at different levels, primary, secondary, and tertiary, and thereby radically departing from the Western-driven theories and practices. After his retirement, I think he is devoting most of his time for teaching and learning in rural areas in Tamil Nadu, especially it's associated with a school in Trichy, where they are doing wonderful experiments in teaching and learning in the primary and secondary sector. So he is also very busy in sharing his knowledge through various other media, especially through print media. His columns in Hindu, his articles in Hindu, they are very popular. And whenever I get those articles forwarded to me, I share it in my groups, and I get a lot of appreciation for sharing such a wonderful article. So sometimes I get to take a little bit of credit of whatever he does. So I especially appreciate those two articles that you have written. One is English in Times of Social Media, and the other, the New Age English Teacher. In fact, these two articles that came in Hindu was forwarded widely among academic fraternity as well as among teacher groups. And I have heard these two articles being mentioned in various teacher discussion forums recently. With a lot of happiness, let me invite the speaker of the day, Dr. Elango. Sir, over to you.
Good evening to every one of you. Before I begin, about a couple of things. Happy Father's Day. I know that there are many fathers. When it comes to Father's Day, there is always a confusion. In some countries, it is celebrated on the first Sunday of June. In some countries, third Sunday. In some places, it is 19th. In some places, it is 20th. I don't know why there is so much of confusion about the fatherhood. When it comes to Mother's Day or Women's Day, it's fixed and there is a lot of celebration. Whereas Father's Day is not really celebrated. I don't know why. Maybe fathers are not so very important, but I think we are also important and we need to celebrate it in the years to come. And secondly, both to Dr. Praveen and Dr. Dania, my own PhD scholar, just a thought, whenever we introduce a person, we always say only the positives. We don't mention anything about the negatives. We hide the negatives. Just a thought popped up when I was introduced. Thanks to Edward de Bono's lateral thinking, I thought I should think laterally, because lateral thinking does not require any kind of a logic. We also want our thinkers to be, our learners to be thinkers, and we want them to be lateral thinkers. So this is the result of lateral thinking. I think learners, or anyone for that matter, viewers, audience, should have a kind of a balanced view of the person. I don't know whether I'm saying something which is appropriate to the occasion, but I definitely feel that, it should be sort of balanced. Anyway, I've titled my presentation as you could see, learners, autonomous learners, and lifelong learners. We are going to look at who are these learners, the real learners. How can they become autonomous learners? And how can they be lifelong learners? These are some of the issues that we are going to look at. The first question, who are the learners? Obviously, the images that come to our minds are students, school-going students, as well as college-going students. That is fine. But what about these learners? Adults, middle-aged, old-aged, are they not learners? We could say that anyone who learns is a learner, irrespective of the age, irrespective of the fact whether they go to an institution or not. And anyone can become a learner at any point of time in one's life. Okay, that's the beauty of becoming a learner, I guess. Now, the second question, what is learning? It is slightly tricky because defining learning and describing learning process is rather difficult, because learning is something we just do without even thinking about it. It's something like seeing, viewing, eating. I don't think any of us bother to stop and ask questions like what is seeing and what is eating. And learning is akin to that. And if you look at the first image in the slide, okay, the word learning is so vague as to be meaningless. To most of us, it really appears to be meaningless. We begin to question what is learning. And the learning is so familiar, we take it for granted. And we, in fact, need to defamiliarize ourselves and look at it objectively and come up with some kind of definition, which we are going to do it in a short while. And the next image, I'm sure all of us are familiar with this, jug and mug theory. Teachers are jugs, learners are the mugs. Jugs pour into the mugs, okay? And this is a theory that we are going to dismantle it. And we'll see how we are going to dismantle it. And we know that learning is a complex process. It is indescribable process. Learning is a cognitive process. It's a mental process. It happens inside the brain. Nobody knows what really happens inside the brain. People say that it's indefinable, indescribable, undefinable. Nobody knows how something is pushed from the short-term memory to long-term memory. These are the kinds of puzzles. But I'd like to come back to this particular explanation in a short while. And we all know that learning is an individual process. It varies from learners to learners. Some learners learn very fast. Some learners learn very slowly. Some learners, in spite of the fact that they invest a lot of time and energy, they're not able to learn anything, or their learning is very, very minimal. There are some learners who can reach only the peripheral levels. They can have only the shallow understanding of whatever they are reading. Whereas some learners can go deep, and it's like a mind for them. They can come up with many interesting insights. There are some learners who can breeze through. They can learn things, anything in a jiffy. Whereas some learners, as we all know, the cliche is they need to burn the midnight oil. They need to sweat it out. They need to slog it out. And because of these variations, or if you could call them variables, we don't have any precise definition of learning. But there are so many definitions of learning. We are going to look at a couple of them, which I think are in a way very generic, that they would give us some idea of what learning is all about. The first definition goes, learning is the process of acquiring something new. That new can be understanding, knowledge, skills, values, behaviors, attitudes, preferences. Anything new that is acquired is learning. It need not necessarily be only the cognitive skill. It also can be a physical skill. The next definition makes it known to us that learning is a transformative process. It transforms us. The brain takes in the information that is given to it, changes what we already know, and it builds on what we do. There are three things that are involved here in this particular process. One is the input, process, and reflection. Ultimately, it brings about some kind of change in our behavior. The change in our behavior need not necessarily be something huge, something massive. It can be as simple as looking at a particular object, looking at a particular concept from a different perspective. It can be as simple as that. I said a while ago, learning is a mysterious process. Let's look at whether it is really a mysterious process, indescribable process, undescribable process. Let's look at that. I'm sure some of you are familiar with the blue brain. Blue brain is the first virtual brain. It is the artificial brain. It functions exactly like the way human brain functions. It can think, it can process, it can respond, it can take decisions, it can keep things in its memory. Exactly this is what our brain does. And this is called the blue brain. It does not indicate the color of the brain. It's not called a white brain or a red brain. It's called blue brain because the project itself is called blue brain, which makes use of the Blue Gene supercomputer. The computer is developed by IBM to carry out the simulation. That's the reason why perhaps it's called blue brain. And Elon Musk, all of us are familiar with him, one of the contemporary geniuses, born in South Africa, settled in California. But just about a few months ago, he moved over to Texas, and he's the CEO of SpaceX and Tesla cars. All of us are familiar with it. And one interesting thing he's planning to do is he wants to colonize Mars, because he feels that sometime or the other, this planet is going to be devastated. It could be a natural devastation, or it could be a man-made devastation, because of which he wants to save the humankind. He is planning to transport at least about 1,000 people to Mars. And the visionary that he is, he says that in another 5 years' time, by 2025, artificial intelligence is likely to overtake human intelligence. And once the artificial intelligence overtakes human intelligence, it's going to become much more smarter. And the neuroscientists also accept that. But they say that may not happen in 2025, but it's certainly likely to happen in 2030, when the human intelligence and the artificial intelligence are going to be on par with each other. After which, that's scary. Okay, artificial intelligence is likely to go very fast, and the human intelligence may not be able to control it at all. And if we don't know how it's going to be, it's not going to be too far. In a matter of 5 or 10 years, most of us are going to witness how the artificial intelligence is going to be. Let's look at some of the impact of artificial intelligence, some of the gadgets, some of the gizmos that use artificial intelligence. We are not familiar with all these things. Let me look at a couple of them. One is the robots. Robots, all of us know that in almost all the important factories, large factories, and they're virtually replacing the human workforce. And these days, you find robots in airports, restaurants, hospitals, malls, grocery stores. It has become so very common. I think we need to learn to live with the robots. And the other one is the virtual assistants. It's not so common in our country, but in the West, my friend is there. And he knows all about it. Alexa, developed by Amazon, and we also have a Siri developed by Apple, and we have Google Assistant. And interestingly, what it does is all that you need to do is call out Alexa. This is Alexa, in case you're not familiar with it. Alexa, what's time now? It tells you the time. Alexa, what's the traffic like? Let's say in MG Road in Trivandrum, it tells you the real-time traffic condition. Alexa, play A.R. Rahman's music. It plays A.R. Rahman's music. Alexa, how many cartons of milk there in the fridge? And it tells you the number of cartons you have in the fridge. It can, if you have a smart home, it can control your smart home. Okay, we have got the drones, we have got the driverless cars, we have got the chatbots, we have social media monitoring. All of us are familiar with it, virtually in every walk of life. Okay, we have the artificial intelligence. Virtually, artificial intelligence is taking over our lives, I could say that. And I must talk about these robots. One is the Sophia. I mean, most of us are familiar with Sophia, developed by Hanson Robotics based out of Hong Kong. She is the first humanoid robot. Interesting thing about her is she can display human-like emotions. She can express, I was told, about 48 expressions, almost all the significant expressions, maybe love, concern, happiness, sadness, anger. But all these emotions she can express. She can also interact with the people. And she can answer some of the questions, some of the simple questions. Okay. And quite interestingly, she can also imitate human gestures and facial expressions. And perhaps the most unique thing is, South Arabia has conferred citizenship on her. She being a robot, for the first time, this particular government has come forward to confer the citizenship. She enjoys all the privileges that a Saudi would enjoy. And you have got Grace. Grace is just about 1 year old, sister of Sophia, and this is developed mainly to serve the COVID patients. She can give them the medicines. She can test the temperature. She can also talk to them, not in an elaborate way, but some of the consoling words she could express that. With the COVID patients, humans are not able to do it. Perhaps she's able to do that. There is so much of demand for Grace, and Hanson Robotics is planning to multiply the production, and you would find more number of people in our country talk about the third wave, fourth wave. If that happens, perhaps we may also require a robot like a Grace. The reason why I mentioned this was, even though now we say that what learning is indefinable, and in a matter of 5 to 10 years, we don't have to wait too long. We are going to see that in our lifetime, and the shroud surrounding the learning is going to become clearer to us. We'll be able to understand what learning is all about. Then let's look at the dimensions of learning. When we say that we have learned something, which means that we have understood it, we have stored it, we could retrieve it whenever we want to, and we could also apply it in the familiar as well as in unfamiliar context. Only then you can confidently say that you have learned something, not otherwise. But the problem is, with our students, they are straight away storing. They are storing by memorizing, by cramming, by rote learning. And they're retrieving it only for the examination purposes. The moment the exams gets over, the moment the test gets over, okay, everything that they've stored in their memory vanishes into thin air. And they've not really learned it at all, because they've not made an attempt to understand what we are trying to memorize. So that's perhaps one of the reasons why the West is going hammer and tongues at rote learning. They feel that we need to discourage rote learning. I don't know why they keep saying it. Rote learning is something we Indians can do it. We Asians can do it, but certainly Americans can't do it. Okay, the damage is, if you're not going to, follow this particular learning method. We all know about Ramayana or epic. Ramayana was in existence in the form of oral tradition for about 1,500 years. It got written down only in the 4th century. Same is the case with Homer's Odyssey. It was in the form of oral tradition. It was passed on from generation to generation by oral poets. And it was written down only in the 6th or the 7th century. And it is basically written for the oral performance. And if they don't have the ability to memorize, we would have lost all these things. Not only these epics, we would have lost all our folk literature, okay, folk tales, folklores. We would have lost so much. So I personally feel that rote learning is something we can do it. I don't think we need to discourage this if the learners are capable of rote learning, especially when it comes to language learning. I don't know whether I'm saying the right thing, but I must say this. Okay, when it comes to rote learning, what is important is the vocabulary, the words. We need to know their meanings. We need to know the word orders. Okay, for which I don't think much of understanding is definitely required, but it is not required to the extent that you want to understand a concept. As far as languages learning is concerned, even if you are able to, it's like learning slokas. You know, when the children are in a particular community, when they are just about 3-year-old, 4-year-old, they are made to recite slokas. I don't think any of them understand the meaning of slokas, but as they grow up, the meaning of slokas come clearer to them. So likewise, learning words, learning the meanings of the words, learning the word order, sometime or the other, if they keep using it, it's interestingly said, use it or lose it. If they keep using it, the meaning of it would become much more clearer. So rote learning, my personal view is that it's not something to demean it, something to decry it, something to discourage it. If our learners are capable of doing it, I think this is something that we need to discourage it, but we should not force it on anybody. If our learners can do it, I think we need to encourage that. Okay, now the students, we all know the kinds of students that we have. I mean, these are the students who pack their bags, put on their uniform, go to the school, and do what the teachers want them to do. Get back in the evening to their homes, do the homework, and read the textbooks. And this is the pattern. This is the routinized pattern. And all of us know that we have got about 320 million students in our country. There are only 3 countries which have more than this population. Obviously, China, India, and the USA. Even the next country, Indonesia, has only about 290 million people over there. So look what damage we are doing to all the 320 million students. We are casting them in the same mold. We are producing the bricks of the same clay. We are producing ants which can walk one after the other in a disciplined way. When you say student, the term connotes submission, compliance. They would do only what the teacher wants them to do it. They would not do anything that teacher has not mentioned. Whereas learners are quite different. Learners are free. They are freed from the teacher's control. They are on their own. They decide what they want to learn. They decide when they should learn, and they decide everything for themselves. Okay, that's the difference between the students and the learners. The point I'm trying to make here is, in our educational system, whether at the primary level, secondary level, or the tertiary level, we have more of students. Can we move them to become learners? That's a point I'm trying to drive. Now, let's look at some of the important qualities. These are all known to everybody. I look at a couple of them. Qualities of the learners. How are the learners different from students? These learners are driven by their interest. They're very passionate about learning. No one needs to breathe down their neck. They can learn on their own. And they like to question everything. Recently, I came across an interesting statement. Maybe the statement is known to you earlier, but I came across very recently. It says, statement closes the minds, whereas questions open up minds. So we need to allow the learners to question. Questioning ability is something we don't encourage in our classes. It's always the teacher who asks the questions, and the learners are made to answer those questions. And we need to ask the students to ask the teacher questions, or popularly said, question the answers. So questioning ability in our system, we don't encourage it, but there's something that we need to do it. And these learners can think for themselves. Okay, they don't go by the thinking of the others. We usually say that, when you look at the list of 21st century skills, invariably every list that you come across, from any source that you come across, they mention thinking, creative thinking, critical thinking, problem solving, decision making. Okay, this is something that we need to encourage among our learners, which we are not doing at the moment. Not doing in the sense to the extent that is expected of us. Like the first lesson that is given to the journalists is, cub reporters is those 5 W's and the H. Okay, who, what, where, when, why, and how. This is something that we need to constantly give it to our students, ask them to question everything that they come across. Rest of the things are known to all of us. And it's not enough that we make our students learners. We need to make them smart learners. How are the smart learners different from learners? Smart learners know the facts and figures of the past. Not only the facts and figures of the past, they know the facts and figures of the present as well. And they can predict the future, not only the immediate future, but the distant future. They can even predict what's likely to happen a century later. It's something like sci-fi writers. All of us are, I'm sure, familiar with the sci-fi genre. It's a fascinating field. Let me give you one example of how true these sci-fi writers are. most of us would be familiar with the George Orwell's 1984, which was written in 1949. He predicted what is likely to happen in 1980s, about 36 years before. The protagonist of the novel, I think it's Winston Smith, he fears that he's being watched wherever he goes. Even in his own home, he is watched through a telescreen by his party. He feels shattered. He feels disgusted. He feels defeated in his life. Okay, that's precisely what's happening to us. All the data about us is in the public domain. Your name, your date of birth, your age, the place where you work, the people you interact with, things you like, things you don't like, your ideology, your political or other kinds of ideology, anyone can trace it. It has come to that extent. And some of us would be familiar with Google Maps as a timeline. And every month we get the timeline updates, which mentions the places that you visited, the places where you stayed, the restaurants where you have eaten your food. You get all the details about it. Okay, so virtually everything is in the public domain. So the point I'm trying to make here is that we need to move students from being merely learners to smart learners. And only then they can become future ready. If you look at the curriculum that we have, we are in a way, I'm sure all of you would agree with me if I say that we are preparing them only for the past. They always deal with the past, not even the present. In a way, we are preparing learners for the future. We need to prepare them future ready. Future ready, it's not easy to do it unless we change the curriculum. And some of us here are literature teachers. We have got about more than 1,000 universities, 42,000 colleges, 12,000 standard institutions. If you look at the literature syllabus, literature curriculum in all these places, virtually they are the same. The only change that you may find is instead of Shakespeare's Macbeth, you may have King Lear, or As You Like It. This is the only kind of difference that you find. These syllabuses always begin from the 15th century. We've got Chaucer, we've got Shakespeare, we have Milton, we have Spencer, and then it comes down to 1950s. After that, we stop. We stop as if no literature existed, because this is what our teachers have studied and this is what we have studied, and we feel that we haven't, there is no literature after that. We stop at the 1950s. If you ask me, an ideal curriculum should begin from 2021 onwards, because this is the literature that they read. They read the literature that is written today, and they begin from this and they go backwards, go back in a reverse chronological order. Okay, they need to get rooted to the present. And if possible, I would even say that you need to deal with the writings of 2050s or the 22nd century. But since such literature is not available, at least we need to begin from the present. Okay, begin from the present. Okay, and then they go backwards, the reverse chronology. That would be a good syllabus. That's one of the ways in which we can prepare the learners for the future. Okay, when our concerns are this, what are our parents' concern? Our parents want their children to be like this. They want their children to be all in all. Okay, they want their children to be, let's say, top scorers. Every parent wants his son or daughter to be a top scorer. If possible, center scorers. They want their children to be athletes, fast like a P.T. Usha. They want their children to be singers like Chitra or Jesudas. They want their children to be cricket player. I mean, the list can go on. Okay, they want all the best for the children. I don't know why parents have so much of ambitions on a child. I mean, this is what the parents are. When we are trying to make our students learners and autonomous learners and smart learners, parents' expectations seem to be different. But I don't think we need to be too much concerned about that. Now let's go on to look at the kinds of learners that we have in our classes. The kind I would like to call them new learners. Okay. I was a student in 60s and 70s. Some of your students in 70s, 80s, and 90s. But the students that we have today are quite different. They're called the digital natives as against the digital immigrants or the digital aliens. They're also called Generation Z or Generation Z, A generation, hashtag generation. These are some of the descriptive terms used to refer to the current generation. Okay, let's look at some of the memes. The first meme, you could see it over here. Doctors are saying to be born child, it's about to be born, and says, can you come out, please? Okay, they are the ones who are born with the mobile phone in their hands, the proverbial mobile phone in their hands. The child says, wait, doctor, we'll put your status and come surely. And the status is feeling excited. Okay, and you have meme over here. Look at the place where the child sleeps, and the meme here, the child is preparing for the LKH entrance. And look at this particular meme. I suppose you could read it yourself. And we are going to reach a audio. This is just 1 minute video, and I must have seen it at least about 100 times. And every time I see it, I feel really, really fascinated about it. This is the kind of learners that we have in our classroom. Okay, right from the time of their birth. Okay, this is an ad by MTS, the internet service provider. Let's watch it.
Push, push.
So you could see right from the day of their birth, how they are different from us. And see what happens in the class. Here is a teacher who teaches abbreviations. For gram, it is G, milligram, mg, kilogram, kg. A student wants to know what about Instagram. The next image is says no textbooks, I'm strictly web fed. I was told in one of the American schools, children were given the textbooks and they're asked to turn to other pages. And many of the children did not even know how to turn the pages. They're swiping the pages. They're so used to swiping their screens, and they're swiping the pages, I believe. And here is another meme. Here is a son. He's asking his dad, how did everyone send email before internet was around? Okay, it's difficult for the kids. It's unbelievable. It's difficult for the kids how the world was just about 2 decades ago, just about 3 decades ago. We have seen the world, but the children have not seen the world, and they feel that we are all dated pieces. We are all dinosaurs. That's the kind of impression those people seem to have. And because of these, perhaps even century ago, okay, John Dewey, for instance, he said that if you're going to teach children, today's children, with yesterday's methodology, yesterday's approaches, yesterday's techniques, yesterday's strategies, you are going to deprive them of tomorrow. And Tagore also, Howard Tagore, echoed almost the same idea. He says, don't limit a child to your own learning. He was born in another time. So as teachers, we need to be constantly creative. We need to have different kind of strategies. For instance, if you're meeting your students for a semester about 60 times, okay, you need to have 60 different strategies in your toolkit, in your teaching kit, I would say. Okay, in every class, there is a certain element of surprise for your learners. You shouldn't keep doing it. You shouldn't become dated. You shouldn't become acne. Only then the learners would be interested in attending our classes, especially post-COVID situation. Our classrooms are going to be different. Let's not expect that our learners are going to be the same and we can continue to do the same thing. We are not going back to what we did earlier. We need to be totally different. Luckily, we have different approaches, different theories, which have been articulated by many people. I'm going to refer to quickly 2 theories. Okay, maybe 2 practices also. The first one I'm referring to is Hole in the Wall project. This is by Sugata Mitra, our one Indian. I think we need to feel proud of him. He was born in Calcutta. He was teaching in Delhi for NIT. All of us know that NIT in 70s, 80s, and 90s, anything to do with the computer programming, that was the leader. Okay, multinational software services company. And he was heading the R&D department. And besides that, he was also teaching a course called computer programming. And the building where he was teaching was adjacent to Kalkaji slum in Delhi. I'm sure some of you will be familiar with that particular slum. And what divided the slum was just a wall. And whenever he was teaching the computer program to the students, those days only the rich people can do this particular program. He used to look through the window, and then he found so many slum children playing in the streets. And there was a kind of nagging thought in him. And he used to wonder if these children were given the computers with the internet facility, how many of them would become computer programmers? And that this thought kept recurring. So what he did one day, he went over to the other side of the building, other side of the wall. He dug a hole and he stuck computer into it, okay, with the internet facility. When he was doing that, all the children gathered around and they asked him whether they can use it. Of course, he said it's meant for them. And then they asked him how to use it. And then he said, how do I know? Okay, it's there for you to use it. And then he went away. He thought that these children would take at least about 2 to 3 days to get to know what it is all about. And he was surprised to know in a matter of 2 to 3 hours, they started using the computer. Who are these kids? 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds. The oldest was the 12-year-old. They have never seen a computer in their life. Okay. And then he got certain inferences based on this particular experiment. He wanted to try it out in other places. You know, he went to different parts of Delhi, did the same experiment, almost got the same kind of results. Maybe he thought the Delhiites are intelligent, whether they are living in slum in other places. Then he went to different parts of our country. He, in fact, came to Chennai also. Wherever he went, he would place the computer with the internet in a public place, maybe a playground or a street corner. And he would see to it that only the children are accessing them and nobody is teaching them, nobody else is accessing them. Okay. He got almost the same results. Then he felt that maybe Indians are very intelligent people when it comes to computers. He wanted to try it out in other countries, maybe resource poor countries. He went to Cambodia. He almost got the same results. He went to Africa. He went to Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Uganda. He conducted experiments and he got the same results. And based on these experiments, he came up with certain inferences. These are some of the inferences. He says that if children are given a computer with the internet facility, they can become computer literate on their own. Computer literacy is something that it need not be taught. They can learn on their own. At least the basic use of computer, they can manage on their own. Nobody needs to teach them. And interestingly, they can also teach themselves English, enough English to access the internet, to chat, to access email. They can manage on their own. And then he also says that they also search the internet for the answers to the questions that are posed to them. You would see in the video that we are going to watch in a minute, internet is full of answers, but internet does not have questions. It does not have the big questions. As teachers, what we are meant to do is give them the questions and they would find the answers for themselves. And he also inferred that the scores, mathematics and science subjects have improved in their schools. And they could answer the examination questions years in advance. For instance, a 6th standard child can answer the 8th standard question papers. Okay, it's all because of the access of the computer. And there's a kind of a change in their behavior as well. Their social interaction skills and their value system, everything changed. And more importantly, they were able to develop their own opinion. They could detect even the indoctrination. I suppose that is the purpose of education. And they can do it for themselves. Okay, let's listen to, watch the video and then I'll come back.
I started in 1999 to try and address this problem with an experiment, which was a very simple experiment in New Delhi. I basically embedded a computer into a wall of a slum in New Delhi. The children barely went to school. They didn't know any English. They'd never seen a computer before. And they didn't know what the internet was. I connected high-speed internet to it. It's about 3 feet off the ground, turned it on and noticed that children will learn to do what they want to learn to do.
Okay, brilliant ideas. I don't think I need to replicate or repeat some of the ideas that came through that particular video. You know, the most important contribution from Sugatamita is that he centered learners and decentered teachers. Learners are at the core center. Learners can manage everything. That was may not be very new, but he articulated so well and then convinced so well that the learners can manage the learning on their own. He came in with a different kind of concepts. You know, one of them is future without a school. He mentioned that years of regimented school system has produced only regimented individuals who are unwilling to learn, who can't learn anything on their own. And he makes an interesting distinction between school and learning. He says school is just a geographical location, a physical space where learning is supposed to happen. But learning need not necessarily happen only in schools. It can happen anywhere. He said the architecture of the knowledge has changed completely. The responsibility of arts is providing them an open environment, open learning environment, natural learning environment. Learners can manage the learning on their own. Likewise, you know, he came up with another concepts like build a school in the cloud and so many other concepts. You know, because Swarup, one of the Indian diplomats, he was so fascinated by this project. In fact, the hole in the wall is not he described it so. It was the media. He was given a wide coverage all over the world, wherever he went. Even when I said he went to Cambodia, Nigeria, and several other places, and there was a wide media coverage. And because Swaroop was fascinated by that, he wrote a novel, his debut novel. He called it Q&A. And some of us would know that this became the base for Slumdog Millionaire. Okay. The next slide makes it clear. Learning is not the product of teaching. It's the result of activities of learners. However capable you are, however communicative you are, however knowledgeable you are, maybe a walking encyclopedia, but still learning is learners' responsibility. Learners have to be actively involved, only then they can learn, and no amount of teaching is going to help them. The another theory that we are going to look at is multiple intelligences. Okay, Howard Gardner, this is about 4 decades old. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it. We are going to make a passing references to this particular theory. In 1983, he came up with a book called Frames of Mind, the Theory of Multiple Intelligences. He attacks the school education system. He says the myth is the only way to learn something is to read it in a textbook or hear a lecture on it. The only way to prove that we have understood something is to take a test. It's mostly short answer test and then essay type questions thrown in. He says that's nonsensical. Okay, there are more number of ways of teaching and learning. And in 20th century, all of us know that, the IQ test and IQ score was used for various purposes. And he was very, very critical. Not only he and the entire academics, the community was against it. Some of the important criticisms against the IQ test were, one, IQ tests were, biased towards white American middle class, and it ignored the minorities as well as the immigrants. They formed 12% of the population, and they were been totally ignored by the IQ tests. And the IQ tests were used by the academics and by the administration to classify students as idiots, imbeciles, and feeble-minded. Okay, that's fine, I would even say. But the kind of damage that it caused, the scar that left, indelible scar that left on learners remained throughout their lives. They virtually become idiots, they virtually become imbeciles, they virtually become feeble-minded because this was the brand given by the schools and they couldn't go against it. And IQ tests, Howard Gardner mentioned that it's very, very limited. It's very narrow. It tests only knowledge. It does not test creativity, practical intelligence, and emotional intelligence. There are so many other aspects that could be tested, and IQ tests don't take them into consideration. That was the reason why he came up with multiple intelligences theory. Just a word about them. Okay, initially, he came up with 7 intelligences. Later on, he had 2 more intelligences. The 9 intelligences are listed over here. Just a word about them. Verbal linguistic intelligence. Obviously, it's the ability to use the language effectively. Teachers, lawyers, writers, public speakers are expected to have high level of verbal linguistic intelligence. Mathologic intelligence is the ability to think logically, ability to think abstractly. Mathematicians, accountants, computer scientists, analysts, statisticians are expected to have this particular intelligence in the high order. Spatial intelligence, this intelligence enables one to think in terms of pictures and images. We have the engineers, architects, interior decorators, graphic designers, and all these people have this particular intelligence more than the other kinds of intelligences. Musical intelligence, as it is mentioned here, this particular intelligence enables people to understand, appreciate, even produce music. The people those have high level of this particular intelligence or, obviously musicians, lyricists, singers, dancers, DJs. These are the people who have high level of musical intelligence. And the bodily kinesthetic intelligence is the ability to use one's own body. Who are the ones who are using their body? Sports persons, mostly sports persons, actors, okay, dancers, even DJs to an extent, they use these particular intelligence. And interpersonal intelligence, which is important for every individual, it's an ability to know oneself. And most of us, don't take ourselves very seriously. We tend to ignore us, but this particular intelligence is very important. This intelligence enables us to know our intentions, our goals, our feelings, okay, the kind of future that we are planning to devise for us. This particular intelligence is important. And the people, those who are good at this are psychologists and entrepreneurs, and all these people have high level of this particular intelligence. Interpersonal intelligence, this is people smart, okay, knowing about the other people, knowing about the other people's intentions, knowing about the other people's feelings, knowing about the other people's goals. obviously people in the human resources development, okay, the salespersons, and the political leaders, religious leaders, they have high level of intelligence. That's how they are able to take people for a ride. Even when they say lie, they're able to get people along with them, mainly because they know people, they understand people. Naturalist intelligence is it's about the understanding nature. Okay, you need not be educated. In fact, farmers and gardeners have much more deeper level of intelligence than the botanists or the environmentalists. So this ability is to know about the nature. Next is the existential intelligence, knowing about the existence. It's called existence smart, rather at the philosophical level, spiritual level. It's only the thinkers, philosophers, and maybe clergies, theologians. They are the ones who can deal with this. Let me give one example of how these intelligences differ from person to person. All of us are familiar with Srinivasa Ramanujam, a mathematical genius. When he joined Pachipas College to do his BSc those days, he was not able to get through his Sanskrit and English. Though he had the mathologic intelligence, he was bad at verbal linguistic intelligence. After all, he was not able to get the minimal score. So intelligence can differ from person to person, but all of us have all these intelligences. These intelligences are in us at different levels. But one or two intelligences are dominant in us, and we need to identify intelligence. We need to identify intelligence and develop this intelligence. There's every chance of we becoming smart learners. Then, as teachers, we treat all learners as one monolithic whole. When you walk into a classroom, whether 40, 60, 70, 100 plus, we look at them as one face. Even though there are different faces, we don't make any kind of distinction among them. We see them as one face. And we use a mono-model approach. And we think that all the learners learn in a similar way. But recent studies have shown that there are different styles of learning. Learners learn differently. There are 7 styles I mentioned over here. The first is the visual learners. These learners learn by visuals, by using visuals, by which I mean looking at maps, looking at graphs, infographics, charts, PPTs. Something should appeal to them visually. Only then they are able to become a better learners. Oral learners, these are all auditory learners. They like to listen to the teachers, like to listen to talks, and they like to take part in discussions. Quite interestingly, they also read out aloud. Even when they are grown up, they would like to read it aloud, because by hearing that sound, they're able to understand better. They're able to remember better. Physical learners, we know the importance of it. The experiential learners who look for hands-on experiences. It was said, Benjamin Franklin, centuries ago, he said, tell me, I forget. Teach me, I remember. Involve me, I learn. Okay, that's the importance of this. All the science subjects, be it botany, zoology, physics, chemistry, all of them give importance to this kinesthetic learners. They are able to learn much better when they are in the labs rather than from the books. Verbal learners, like to read a lot, and they like to write. Okay, they want to become voracious readers. If possible, they want to become professional writers as well. Even writing is something which fascinates them. These learners are interested in teaching others, explaining to others, taking part in discussions, making presentations. These are some of the things that which fascinate them. The logical learners, these learners are fascinated by subjects like mathematics and subjects like logic. These learners like to question a lot. By questioning, they're able to get a kind of comprehensive picture. They like to classify, they like to categorize, they like to think abstractly. And by thinking abstractly, they're able to see the relationship among several things. They're able to connect the dots, disconnected things. And this is what the logical learners do. Social learners, all of us are familiar with this kind of learners, especially during examination time. The social learners go to their friends and ask them to teach them. The complaint very often is, those learners score better than those who taught them. Okay, any group project, group work they are interested in doing, that's the way they learn it. And then solitary learners, like the solitary reaper, they like to be alone. Even if they are with just one another person, they're not able to stay focused. And this type of learners are self-reflective, self-motivated learners. Again, as I said about the multiple intelligences, this is true of all of us. All of us learn through all these styles. All of us have all these styles, but 1 or 2 styles are predominant over us. Okay, if you could identify some of the weak learners in your classes, and if you can enable them to identify the style with which they can learn, there is every chance of they becoming better learners. And recently I came across this poem. It tells us how we should not judge our students the way they are in the classes. And when they reunite after years, see how they've become. Okay, the topper of the class is a happy homemaker. Backbencher of the lot is an entrepreneur. I mean, this has come in WhatsApp. I'm sure that you're all familiar with this. The flamboyant fashion star became a dreaded lawyer. Often ignored Joe turned a well-known writer. The one who failed in math paper is a fashion designer. And the one who often got to stand outside the class is respected army officer. The reunion taught me how people come with many layers and told me why we should never judge a book by its cover. Each child out there has a different success story. I think we need to look at our learners. If you have 40, 50, 60, 100 learners in your classroom, you need to look at each child as a different entity, not as the same entity. I mean, we as teachers, we are guilty of that. And then Albert Einstein has said, I mean, this is a well-known quote. He says, everybody is a genius. Normally, geniuses don't accept others are genius. Only they claim that they are genius. But he says that everybody is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. That's what our education system is doing to our child. The other image that you have exemplifies that. Okay, it says that for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same test. You know, you have the students standing in a row, and they're all asked to take the same test because same exam, because the selection has to be very fair. And how could they happen when students are so different? It's just not possible. But that's what our system is doing. Let's look at the learning ecosystem that we have now. You know, in the ancient times, in the Gurukula system, we had just the gurus. We just had the teachers. After the Industrial Revolution, we have got the teachers and the textbooks. But today, look at the number of resources that we have. We have the printed materials. We have got the textbooks. We have got the reference books. We have got the encyclopedias. In a way, that's also a reference book, but it has a different significance. And then we have got the documents. And online mode, I don't have to say much about it. We have the synchronous, asynchronous formats. We have got ebooks, audiobooks, podcasts, videos, apps, LMS, images, infographics, Wikipedia. There's so many. Okay, there is no dearth of online materials. And then what about the mass media? Okay, we have radio, television, films, newspapers, magazines, and journals. These days, you know, their circulations are down, and they're also going for e-version of it, advertisement. In fact, mass media is so important for the adults. If you look at the adults, they read only the newspapers, magazines, and journals. If literacy is alive for them, it's only because of that's a very important source of learning. Unfortunately, our learners today are not touching them anyway. And then social media, whenever we describe a God, we say that God is ubiquitous. God is all pervasive. I don't know about that. But today, the social media has become all pervasive. Okay. Today, about 3.6 billion people are active users of social media. And in another few years' time, it's going to be 4.4 billion. The number keeps increasing every day. And it has become so very important. We all know the importance of it. And what are the sources that they have? Okay, it's no longer the teachers. We also have the tutors. We have got the mentors. We have got the online tutors, online mentors. We have got the online groups, peers, and then we also have the robot teachers. Okay, you could see the robot teacher over there. And we days to come, I think we are going to have more number of robot teachers in our classrooms. And if you've got the learning platforms, you know, we have got the MOOCs. All of us are familiar with it. I don't think I need to deal with it. The Swayam, our one. And you must have seen it in the newspapers or heard it that UGS allowed 40% of the courses to be done through online mode. Okay, and that has to happen only through Swayam because they want to promote our own platform. And then you've got edutech companies, Byju's, the unicorn company. In a matter of less than 10 years' time, it has become a unicorn company. This is rated number 2 globally. We have got Duolingo, Unacademy. I don't think one life is enough. If you decide to be a learner, if you decide to be a smart learner, you need at least about 7 lives. I don't know whether that is enough. And the trend today is more number of learners are becoming blended learners. That is, all of us know that on and offline learners. After the pandemic, more number of learners are getting used to online learning. But there is always a longing to get back to the physical classrooms, learn from the teachers, learn from their own peers. There is a tendency to go back. But the last couple of decades, what has become so very popular is the flipped model. Just a word about it. Flipped model, you know, all the material that is to be learned is sent to the learners in advance. It's of course happening online. You know, it could be documents, it could be words, it could be videos, it could be audios, it could be PPTs with voiceover, or just PPTs, okay, infographics, pictures, it could be anything. Everything is sent in advance to the learners, and the learners learn them on their own. And they can discuss if they want to with the others, but they learn on their own. And if they've learned on their own, why should they come to the class? They come to the class mainly for 3 purposes. One, In case they've got any issues, if they misunderstood something, if they want to get any kind of clarifications, they come to the class. Secondly, some activities are conducted. It's a task-based approach. There are certain tasks given, learners are expected to do it. In case there are certain gaps which the teacher has identified, he can fill in those gaps. So flipped model is, in the West, it has become so very popular. Now, more number of learners are sliding towards becoming digital learners. The digital learners, we know that they use the technology. They use different kind of gadgets. They use multiple gadgets to learn these days. They are described as the learners on the go. And they can determine the speed with which they want to learn. If they want to learn faster, if they want to learn slow, they can even adjust the speed of videos and the audios. I didn't know that such facilities are in existence, but it is there. Learning has become very personalized. You can start off with some program. If that program does not interest you, you can dump it and go on to do something else. It's all left to you. You can decide what you want to learn, how you want to learn, when you want to learn. You can decide everything. And now we got the adaptive technology. Because of the adaptive technology, software that we have, it can become interactive. It can become very engaging as well. And another important thing is learning has become, you're spoiled by options, in fact. As I said just a while ago, with reference to flipped classroom, we've got so much of materials. We have got the audio materials, we have got the video materials, we have got the PPTs, we have got documents, words, and they can decide what they want to read. If something does not interest, they can dump it and they can go on to read, engage with something interest. There are replications. Same thing is made into a video, audio materials, number of audio books. We are all familiar with them. So more number of learners are becoming digital learners. Some of the characteristic features of digital learners are, they're highly tech savvy. All of us know that. But the most important thing is they are not merely consumers of knowledge. They have become the producers of knowledge. So consumption, production go hand in hand. It does not happen only at the only when assignments are submitted, only when the tests are taken, only when the examinations are taken. Virtually on a regular basis, they are consuming and they are as well as producing. Okay, now autonomous learners. If one is a digital learner, okay, there is every chance of he or she becoming an autonomous learner. What does the word autonomy mean? Okay, autonomy means, all of us know that, independence, freedom, self-determination. If you go back to the origin of the word, it is derived from the Greek word, which means self-governance, self-legislation. Autonomy is not something to be conferred by someone. Autonomy is not to be granted by some organization. Autonomy is something that you take for yourself. Autonomy is something that you assume for yourself. Okay, so autonomous learners they take charge of their own learning. They are the ones who plan their learning activities, monitor their progress, and evaluate the outcomes. They decide what kind of courses that they should do. They decide what kind of material that they need to look at. They decide what kind of mentors that they should have. They decide when to take the examination. Okay, that's the kind of autonomy that they enjoy. No, that the question that I was asking myself, what is the ideal time to introduce autonomy to the learners? It could be as early as when the students are in the 3rd standard, 4th standard. The moment they have acquired the basic skills of reading and writing, we need to move them beyond the classroom, beyond the teacher, beyond the textbook. After that, what happens is the moment they come to high level of education, the learning styles are formed. It's crystallized. It's very difficult to bring about any kind of transformation in the learning style. So earlier the better. Okay, it should be done, I would say, at the primary level. It's not that we need to introduce the concept, but the way we approach the children, okay, right at the initial stages, we could introduce them. Then lifelong learners. How could they become lifelong learners? The term is auto-explanatory. I don't think I need to elaborate on it. Let's look at one of the definitions of lifelong learning. Lifelong learning is, it's a kind of ongoing process. Ongoing in the sense there can be number of ons and offs, but less number of offs and more number of ons, and it's a self-motivated pursuit of knowledge. Whenever I look at the term pursuit of knowledge, I'm reminded of what is mentioned in the American Declaration of Independence: life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Okay, this learning is definitely not a pursuit of happiness. The pursuit of knowledge is a difficult process. Like the Westerners have a tendency to say that learning is fun. I wonder whether learning is really a fun. You need to invest your time and energy. You need to sweat it out. Otherwise, learning is not going to happen. So it has to be a self-motivated affair, and it could be for personal reasons or it could be for the professional reasons. As teachers, we have the professional reason. If you can club it with the personal reasons, I'm sure that you'll be able to become a lifelong learner. What did the thought leaders say about lifelong learning? And you have Albert Einstein. I mean, he seems to be the authority for everything. He says that once you stop learning, you start dying. And today we are living at a time of knowledge explosion. described as information age. So you need to plan. When there is so much of information, you need to plan. It's not a casual affair. It's a deliberate affair. Okay, you need to plan how you're going to be a lifelong learner. And Ford has said, anyone who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80. If you keep learning, you remain young forever. Okay, in another 5 minutes, I would be ending it. We all know about Satya Nadella. A couple of days ago, he's promoted as the chairman of Microsoft. Unimaginable. Okay, I think we need to be proud of this particular person. Let's look at the secret behind this person's success. First, let's watch the video, and then I'll come back to it.
I think more than anything else, perhaps what defines me is, and this I've also understood exposed, is I'm a lifelong learner. I get energized when I see people achieve high standards in anything. At work, when somebody comes to me with an idea that they've implemented and it's something that I've not seen before, that's the thing that gets me going. As I say, I buy more books than I can finish. I sort of sign up for online courses more so than I can actually finish them, but I love it.
I'm ending it there. It's likely, it runs for 4 minutes, but the idea is, I suppose, clear enough. He claims that he's a lifelong learner. I don't know how many of us are familiar with his personal life. Okay, we all know that, he's leading a kind of a flamboyant life. But if you look at his personal life, he has got 3 children, and his son suffers from autism, cerebral palsy. One of his daughters suffers from learning disability. Schools in Seattle would not give her admission, so his wife had to take her to Vancouver in Canada for giving her the education. Okay, in spite of all these troubles, he reads, he writes, he likes poetry, reads Indian poetry, reads American poetry, he watches soccer, he watches cricket, that's his favorite game. Okay, in spite of all these things, and he has grown up to the extent that he has grown, because the success behind all this, the secret behind all the successful people is they have a hunger for learning. As they say, fire in their belly and spark in their eyes. And even if it is for a few minutes, as I said, they are willing to learn. Another important quality is they are willing to learn from any kind of source, whether traditional, non-traditional, few minutes, lengthy. I mean, they are willing to enroll themselves and do the courses. And they are willing to learn, unlearn, and relearn. I mean, this is what Alvin Toffler has said. The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who can't read and write, but those who can't learn, unlearn, and relearn. The term unlearn disturbed me for quite some time. I mean, by which it is meant that anything that has become obsolete, anything that has become dated, anything that has become dysfunctional, you need to throw it. Just because you have learned it, you need to cling on to it. Some of us have a tendency to cling on whatever that we have learned it, and then we refuse to relearn. But the successful people are those who are willing to learn, unlearn, and relearn. Let's look at the kind of life that we lead today. This is how the world is being described today. The 4 important qualities: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. I would say life till the 20th century, till the end of the 20th century, was by and large certain. It was not so complex, but the last 2 decades, it has become so very complex. And when we are talking about artificial intelligence, we made a reference to it. Just a couple of examples, more examples on this. The toothbrush, and the toothbrush is going to become smart toothbrush. And this would send your dental health to your dentist without asking your permission. It's going to look at how you're flossing and whether your cavities are clean enough. All the details about your dental health will be sent by your smart toothbrush. And if you have got smart toilet as well, and the smart toilet would analyze your leavings, your stool, and then find out whether you've got any kind of health issues. And it can identify, it can diagnose if you've got a bowel cancer, in which case it can alert you on the dietary procedure. Okay, this is a kind of world in which we are going to live in. It's a highly technology-driven, technology-dominated world that we are going to live in. So if you don't want to be left behind, if you want to be part of the world as it moves, you need to certainly become a lifelong learner. Learning never ends. Yeah, lifelong learner is a lifelong winner. If you want to be a lifelong winner, if you want to leave your name in the sands of time, if you want to leave your name behind, and you need to be a lifelong learner. I'm going to end by looking at these 4 what are they? Animated pictures. I know this visualizes how the life is going to be in 3000 AD, 1000 years from now. Let's take the flight of fancy. Nothing so very significant about it, but the life is likely to change like this. For men, auto shaver is very important. Shaver, that's one of the things they feel disgusted with, and we are going to have auto shaver. For women, okay, cosmetics, very simple. And the computer, I don't think that we need to have any kind of rules. The computer is going to punish you if you do something nasty. Doctors, you don't have to go for x-rays. Doctors can manage. Doctors can see everything through your body. Okay, what is it that I'm trying to convey? I mean, two things I'm trying to mention. One, we have students in our country, especially. May not be the case in other parts of the world, but in our country, we have got the students. We need to convert them. We need to transform them as learners, autonomous learners, and lifelong learners. And we as teachers, we should not remain as teachers. I think Dania used an interesting expression, educators. We need to become educators, and we need to become educationists. What are the differences among teachers, educators, and educationists? I also believe in the theory of learning crisis, like a financial crisis. Create a crisis, and when there is a crisis, everybody becomes hyperactive, and the people will learn on their own. I mean, that's what the principle is all about. That's what we are trying to drive at becoming an autonomous learner. So we need to be at least educators. We need to be impactful on our learners. I mean, these are the two ideas I was trying to drive home. With that, thank you all.
Thank you, sir, for that enlightening session. Now, may I request Dr. Leena to take care of the Q&A session?
I felt that we had a great academic journey with you. We got a lot from you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And we have questions here. One, Mr. Kankan, he asked that in a large class where we have more than 60 students, how feasible is the assessment pattern if we have to take the learning styles into consideration? Maybe in a classroom with less than 20 students, we can think of. And with this pandemic, it has become all the more stressful on the part of the teacher.
Leena, I suppose you can answer the question, Leena. This has been the question for decades. Every time you meet a group of teachers, they always say that our classrooms are large. That is given. Okay, there is no way that we can go for the system that is prevalent in Europe or America with the small classrooms. Okay, we need to find ways of doing it. Okay, we can't look for an ideal situation. In our country, these are all given. Your classes are large. Okay, it is difficult. But what are we going to do about it? Are we going to keep saying that it is difficult and not doing anything about it? Or can we do something about it? I suppose the right person to answer this question would be Dr. Bhaskar Nair. The interesting thing about him is he always does ordinary things, but in an extraordinary way. Okay, I mean, that's a great thing about him. When he asked me for this particular webinar, I can't say no to him. He's one person I respect a lot. I mean, he was in the field and he's making changes. He's meeting housewives. He's meeting people in the field and talking to them. If he's capable of doing that, classroom is given, audience is given, students are given to us. It is difficult. I don't deny that. But is there a way that we can work around this particular issue? Instead of saying that our classrooms are large, it is just not possible. Yes, it is not possible. So are we happy with it? Or can we bring about a change? Can you bring about a change at least for about 10 students, 15 students, the weaker ones? That would be my response, Leena.
Okay, sir. Prashant Reddy asked that isn't autonomous learning and lifelong learning is saying?
In a way, yes. There are certain overlaps. Okay, you can be an autonomous learner and you don't have to be a lifelong learner. You take control of your learning, but you don't continue to learn. That's where lifelong learning becomes important. They are one and the same, but at the same time different. You can be an autonomous learner. You can learn whenever you want to learn, and then you can be off. But if you want to be a lifelong learner, it has to be a continuous process. As it is mentioned in the definition, it has to be an ongoing process. Lifelong learning, as the term itself indicates, it is auto-explanatory. Okay, one has to learn continuously, regular basis, day-to-day basis.
Okay, sir. One Asran Azmi asked that when there is evidence of the use of metacognitive strategy and knowledge by learners and clear processing in their meaning building and decoding skills, how should it be relate or correlate the autonomous learners and EMC strategy use? What would be the major pinpoints to highlight?
I really like to skip this question, Lina, because you say that you believe in bottom-up approach. I would suggest it's not that just a word on that, because I know that ELTIF believes in bottom-up approach. The problem with the two approaches that we have, top-down and bottom-up approach. Top-down never reaches the down, and bottom-up never reaches the top. And there is no way that we can sandwich these things. I've not understood the questions clearly, so I may not be able to answer. But like the person who has asked this question, I'm sure that he will be able to unravel it. Or if anybody wants to step in, please, I do welcome it.
Sir Elango, sir, can I give the suggestion? In fact, metacognitive strategy is part of autonomous learning, sir. It's because this is my PhD thesis. This is about that's why I'm saying this is part of it. Metacognitive strategies. Without it, we can't say that we are autonomous learners.
Thank you, Sivgami. Thank you for bailing me out. Yeah.
For the first question also. Yeah. Actually, we, based on the performance of students, we put them into classes, A section or B section or something like that. Here at VIT, we ask them to undergo some courses also, special courses, basic course and advanced course. Instead of doing that, we can, we can segregate the students based on their learning preference or style. That's the way if we do, then it will be better, I think. It's easy to say. But once if we do that, start doing it, if it is feasible, then definitely we can follow that. Another thing, we need to get faculty members also to handle the classes, because students may choose for even visual learners will be there and auditory learners will be there. So we have to have enough faculty members also in the department. Otherwise, we can't do that. So
I totally agree with you. I was part of a streaming in Loyola College for about, I was working in Loyola College for about 2 decades. Where we streamed the students A, B, and C. Just a minute about that. A is meant for the top scorers, B for the average, and C for the sort of weaker learners. The idea is when the C stream learners come to the 4th semester, for A stream, English is only for 2 semesters, B stream 3 semesters, and C stream for 4 semesters. The idea is that when the C stream learners come to the 4th stream, they should be on par with the A stream learners. Never it has happened. Yeah, they continue to remain the same.
It's on learning preferences or styles for the students.
Yeah, there are difficulties, Lina. I mean, sorry, Sivgami. It's easy. I mean, when Professor Bhaskar asked me to give a talk, I can sort of go rambling. Okay, without considering too much. The idea is that can we explore these ideas? These are all possibilities. Okay, I don't think that we need to keep repeating whatever we have been doing so far. Given the kind of context in which we are in, we need to think differently. That's all my point is.
One more question from Rashmi. How to motivate learners who have learning gaps, bringing them at par with even an average student? As a teacher, this mixed level is so challenging when assessment is the benchmark of success.
That's a real problem. No, I'll put it in a reverse order. How to manage the teachers' gaps? Do you think that all the teachers are really fired, highly motivated, okay, really committed to teaching? I mean, there are gaps everywhere. I mean, it's a, let's say, a microcosm of the macrocosm. That's what the society is all about. It is difficult. I don't want to be prescriptive. It's not that I've got the solutions. If I've got the solutions, I would have made our country a different kind of country. Okay, these are the issues that we need to grapple with. It has to be done at the individual level. Okay, as we said, it cannot be done at the top level. Top level oddly understands the issues that we are facing on a day-to-day basis in our classroom context. Can we make some kind of adjustment? Can we make some kind of changes? Can we identify the learning gaps? Once a while, is it possible to talk to some other students and then find out what exactly their problem is and enable them to become better learners? Difficult? Okay, the moment we walk out of the classroom, I know I worked in a college, I worked in a university. The moment I come out of the classroom, my relationship with my students is cut off. After that, I'm just not available to my students. Okay, wrong to say that, bad to say that, that's how most of us are. And if we have got our own, commitments, and then we have got our own priorities and things like that, I think we need to break the mold. We need to think something different. Yeah, let's listen to Sivgami. Sivgami seems to answer for every issue.
I create WhatsApp groups, sir, with my students. Yeah. So I keep in touch with them. Whatever I receive from any forward, even whatever I prepare, I send to all the groups.
Yeah.
to my students, even the, what would I say? I mean, previous semester students also. I don't mind sending to all the groups. This is a way we can keep in touch with them and we can encourage them to learn. Some of them are so much interested. They are interested in learning even after they got through English papers, 2 papers, even they want to learn from it.
Sivagami, we have got 12 million teachers in our country, and there is only one Sivagami.
There may be many, sir. But it's because
I mean, as a response, I'm just saying this, okay? Yeah. And all I could say is that there should be 12 lakh, 1.2 million Sivagamis, then the learning scenario would be totally different.
I want to ask you, sir, all the new gen learners are digital natives and we are digital immigrants. We don't know anything about the technology, we can say that. But why we always prefer traditional way of teaching?
True to an extent, Lina. I'll tell you my story with Praveen. I mean, I'm a digital, not even an immigrant, I'm a digital alien. Okay, but just because I was made to make the presentation, you ask Praveen, the kind of help that he has extended to me. If you decide to learn, we can learn any point of time. Moreover, technology, once you learn it, becomes much, much easier. I mean, we have a block. We think that technology is very, very difficult. In fact, the technology is the easiest thing, and there are so many technological, so many softwares and things like that. But I think we need to educate ourselves with the help of some of our own colleagues. And in fact, our children can teach us much better than, I was referring to jug and mug. Okay, in fact, the mugs can become the jugs and they can teach us. That's one way we can overcome the technology hesitance. People talk about vaccine hesitancy, but I think we will be able to overcome technology hesitancy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lina.
Well, sir, Bhaskaran sir, you didn't make a reference to Bhaskaran sir's methodology of teaching, sir. Would you like to share your impression, sir?
There isn't much to, just maybe a small comment. How to mold the learners into lifelong learners. I think if life is embedded in learning from the very beginning, learning can be made life-bound. Such learners are likely to remain lifelong. From KG to PG and even beyond, if life is always embedded in learning, the moment it gets divorced from learning, learning becomes a non-natural process. The focus should be mainly at the primary level. If primary sessions, primary teachers are well equipped, I think Indian universities can be closed down forever.
Praveen, just one second. I was fascinated by the statement of Bhaskaran Iyer. Used to say, burn the books. Okay, I would say a step further and say, burn the syllabus, burn the curriculum, especially for languages. They are limiting things. For language, you can't, one example, if you look at any standard textbook, you have text for 40 pages and exercise of 100 pages. Okay, with the 40 pages, 1 year of teaching, how do you think the learners can learn the language? With that, I end. Sorry, Praveen.
I come from a teacher education college background. And for us, for the syllabus, a large chunk of the syllabus set aside for learner and learning. And if you ask me in one sentence to say, what from my own experience, what I would like to say is, as Professor Bhaskaran also said that, if the teacher can evoke an interest in the learner to learn, because unless the learner also takes a step, the teacher has to evoke the interest and the learner has also take the interest, then learning happens. If both of them are inactive, then it's like a rudderless boat. Some may succeed, some may not. Sir, thank you so much for joining us, for answering the questions. The participants have also seen different aspects of the work they expected. I think most of them are teachers. And for us, our bread and butter is the learner. It's that we do. And this session is going to be always useful whenever we put it on YouTube. Teachers can view it again and again and think, cogitate on what you have said and refine their own perspective. Thank you so much, sir. We are now moving on to the vote of thanks session. May I request the secretary of ELTIF, Mr. Walson, to formally thank the speaker and also the participants.
This evening is a very interesting and memorable one for all of us, for all ELT people. ELTIF's alternative platform, online platform, set up for crossing COVID-19 situation is successfully going forward. It's a very happy thing. It provides excellent sessions on ELT. Today's program, the speech by Dr.Elango, ELTAI, on the topic learners, autonomous learners and lifelong learners. The 17th of the series is now going to conclude. I think all the language lovers who participated on our gallery who attended the session will be very, very happy, satisfied, as they could enjoy a very excellent, very wonderful, valuable, and interesting lecture session. Though the concepts about learning, learners, students, etc. are very common and familiar to us, Dr. Elango sir explained how they are very much complex, wide, and deep also in this present high-tech reality. Anyway, the lecture was very much useful and informative in quality and also very marvelous in the presentation style also. I don't like to prolong my words. Let me go to my duties. First of all, it is my great pleasure to extend hearty vote of thanks to Dr. Elango sir for delivering such a beautiful, very informative and proficient speech on this topic. Thank you very much, sir. And finally, the participants, they asked several questions today for clarification. I think they will be very happy and satisfied. Most of them sent positive comments and also suggestions in the chat box. I extend my sincere thanks to all the participants. Thank you very much to all of you.